This week, a popular card game becomes a role-playing game. What do we think?
And the topic of the week, the 2015 Spiel de Jahres. We got the nominees, and we're going to tell you what we think about them. I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast.
Sentinels of the Multiverse, one of the big series in board games, which is about to release its villain version of its game, has announced they're releasing an RPG for Sentinels of the Multiverse. This is going to be made with the help of Critical Hit Studios. And if you want to know more about it, they're actually going to be releasing it for some playthroughs at Gen Con, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so we're going to be at Gen Con, so that'd be something really cool to check out. We've never demoed a role-playing game before.
No, and I think it's a perfect move on their part. Because if you've ever played the game, you've noticed a lot of their cards on the bottom. I know they even have some comics, but even just looking at the game alone, the bottom they have quotes and like issue numbers. Like they put a lot of backstory into their game, which is what they sort of have to. It's one of the reasons it stands out.
It's heavy with lore, and I think this is, like you said, a really smart idea. And there isn't really any like big superhero RPG. There's some, but isn't like a D&D equivalent in terms of popularity. So I think it's a good niche that they might be able to fill. And also the fact that you can create your own characters too, not only deal with the pre-existing ones from their game.
Well, another reason that's really cool is unlike as much as we love, I'm sure we'd play within the Marvel universe or the DC universe. This is a universe not because they're taking a property that's used from something else and just throwing it into board games. This is one that's been around board games for a while. So they generally understand what board gamers are looking for in a game. So they can craft their hero stories much more loosely compared to strictly like Spider-Man. Like you can be a bit more creative.
There's a lot more room for experimentation and creativity. Yeah,
While at the same time understanding what we as the board gamers would like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it is a whole new medium, which is understandable. Yeah. I think it's a great move on their part and something we're both going to look forward to at Gen Con.
Yeah, we'll see. They successfully transitioned to the tactics mode, so it seems like they're doing well, bringing it into all different varieties.
I think they understand their property is really good, and they're going to try to go Munchkin style.
Exactly. When you have that universe, you have the base, you spread it out a little bit.
So hopefully, maybe we'll get the Sentinels of the Multiverse movie.
Oh, that could happen. Cartoon, who knows? Speaking of games with rich, thematic, deep, interesting lore, Flux! Flux is, of course, a card game of chaos and randomness. We did a playback for it, and they have announced a new expansion, which is Flux Dice. This will be compatible with all versions of Flux across the board. Perhaps not Flux the board game, but the card games. And basically, it adds even more randomness to the game. It starts with a rule and play, in which it states that instead of the normal draw one, play one you start with, you roll 2 dice. There's a draw die and a play die, and whatever results you get, that's how many cards you draw and play. There's a few other cards that it comes with. They haven't really shown us the whole thing, but that's the basics of it. And like I said, you can add it to any Flux, and I guess it's for people who really didn't think Flux was random enough. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting. I think there's some other. I hope to see the other cards that they add some more wrinkles to it.
I would hope they use the dice more than just that one card. That's my big thing.
Yeah.
As long as the other cards add more dice rolling for hilarity, then I'd say it's good. If that's the only time, that's a little bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. There might be different sides or even different dice. I don't know if it's only draw this many or play this many.
Right.
No, that's what it looks like.
And you could probably do some hilarious things. Like it could be like, now replace the 6-sided die with 4-sided die. Like you could come up with some really great ways to just mess around with.
Yeah, but it seems like I'm sure it will probably be super cheap. So it'll probably be a no-brainer addition to if you're into Flux.
Yeah, well, I think it's a perfect, once again, I think because everyone always complains about random dice rolls, Flux is about randomness, they sort of like...
Yeah.
If surprised it took so long.
Yeah, right. It seems like a natural fit. It does. So that's Flux Dice. I think it's going to be coming out, later this year, but we'll see. We'll keep our eyes
we'll keep an eye on and see if it also appears at Gen Con.
That's right. Very possible.
Leaving specific board games, Hasbro, the company you've grown to probably know, love, and hate all at the same time, as their stock has recently gone up quite a bit. It's increased 31%, and gone over both of their expectations in terms of profit, which is a really big deal in terms of the stock market. And I know you can look at the article we have posted on our site, which will go into more of the details because neither of us have majored in marketing, so we're not going to try to BS you on that.
But we watch a lot of Mad Money with Jim Cramer. So.
But a lot of the site was talking about how this is a good place to jump on for stocks. But I'm curious about, and I want to talk to you about, is your opinion of why you think Hasbro has been jumping up. Do you think it's board game related? Do you think it has nothing to do with board games at all?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the first thing that leaps to my head is like the Transformers movies.
But that didn't come out. That came out a whole year ago.
Right. And I mean, and they've been going. They've been hugely successful for a long time.
All right. Now,
so 31% increase is pretty big.
Hear me out. One word. Ouija.
That's it. The Ouija movie took off.
It just took a while for people to realize how an amazing movie.
But you know, that could be a big part of it because remember they also have the Dungeons and Dragons movies sort of on their side potentially in the future.
Right.
And the Ouija 2 movie. People might be seeing the potential there for all these board game movies becoming big.
Yeah, when we're hearing about the Monopoly movie. I know the Transformers line has just released their Combiner Wars, which is really cool. Okay. I already started getting it because it's the robots that they've worked really hard to make them so they still look nice, but they actually combine together, like the 5 combine as one giant one. And there's 3 different ones that do that. So, I mean, that's probably it. Board games have going up, so I think that is a sign. Yeah,
probably just in general, people like to play more board games. Right. I don't know if the different versions of Monopoly and stuff, maybe because they are releasing a lot of the special editions like the Zelda version and stuff like that appeal to more people, I guess. But I don't know if I can't imagine that's a huge part of it.
No, because I feel like they've been doing that for a while. Yeah. I do think the movie idea is actually probably a big one.
Yeah,
I definitely realizing the board games might somehow be, depending on the game, be able to be written as a movie or as a big blockbuster possibly.
Yeah. So well, give us your ideas and speculation.
Or if you bought stock.
Yeah, right. Maybe we should buy some stock. I don't know.
Some Hasbro stock.
They said it's a good time to jump on. If you need some time to mull it over, though, we're going to give you that time because first we're going to talk about our Kickstarter Pickstarters. The Kickstarter game that I'm going to talk about this week is The Hunters from designer Matthias Albrecht. It is a post-apocalyptic robot co-op fighting game that actually has a crazy, the backstory alone I think is good enough to be a movie or at least a comic book or something. It's like after, we've used up all the fuel sources in the world and America and Europe and some other countries have banded together with this new energy source and created artificial intelligence and robots and all this crazy stuff.
So wait, the new energy source is artificial intelligence?
No. The new energy sources allow them to power these crazy robots that have artificial intelligence.
Things go wrong.
Things have gone wrong. And in this game, you as a team, it's 1 to 4 players, are working together you are the hunters of the robots. You're trying to take them down because they're taking over the world or whatever. And it's pretty cool. It's a big game with a lot of miniatures. And there's a very detailed system where you get to pick out your weapons. You can, using materials you find, you combine weapons and create new ones. And there is a campaign mode, so you actually can gain experience as you go on to get new abilities and even more weapons, etc., etc. You're basically moving around a map like a tactics style game, and depending on your positioning, you're shooting at robots, things like that. And yeah, it just seems like a really cool concept. It's clearly a big game that seems really polished. It comes out of Poland. They did another game called The Convicted. They don't have a company name, I don't think.
So who's the designer?
It was Matthias Albrecht, and it is supposedly the other game was well received, I think. But it looks pretty cool. It goes for $86. So it's a big one.
You have to consider the fact almost any time you see miniatures.
Right. And that also includes any stretch goals. So it's reached a goal. There's at least one expansion in there. So lots of different maps and stuff like that. So it looks really cool. I want to try it out. It seems pretty fun.
All right, that sounds pretty cool. You're not the only one with a large Kickstarter.
That's right.
Mine is Madara from Succubus Publishing. What this game does is it's bringing the dungeon crawl, but making the story much heavier. When I first heard about this, the first thing that came to my mind was what's the Tales of the Arabian Nights. because the story's huge. The way it works is you're going to play through. You make your character, and your character's going to go along. And as you fight, you may try to save a town, save a loved one. But if you fail, you don't restart. That actually affects how the story's going to continue on. And you're each trying to save your kingdom. So if you could saving that loved one or failing to save that loved one could drastically affect how the game's going to play for the rest of the game.
Almost,
it's a
like
legacy.
Fire Emblem kind of.
Yeah.
That
which I really love because Tales plays a lot in the story too, and we've both found that to be just such a fun game.
Yeah.
Another thing they do, which is I really think is a good idea, is your character isn't locked in. So like if you're playing a sorcerer, like let's say you want to be a sorcerer, but you want to be fighting along with your familiar with a battle axe. You can do that. Like you can design your character how you want to. There's nothing that limits your growth.
So it sounds like it really takes a lot of role-playing elements into a traditional dungeon crawling board.
Yes, with miniatures and customized boards. There's alternative rules that add a fifth player to be sort of like the dungeon lord. You make it more Descent-like. If you don't like the story, they actually have a way to just do randomizing levels from smaller, weaker things to bigger, harder things. So they made it any way you want to play it. But of course, the reason I'm saying bring this to you is the story. That's the thing that stood out to me that made me really exciting.
Sounds like, because I know some of our favorite parts of games like Descent or Mice and Mystics too is where they really bring in that story into play.
Right.
It makes it a lot more interesting.
And they've already gone almost double what they've asked for. So they've hit a lot of stretch goals, a lot of miniatures. It goes for $100. Actually, they're only pledge level. They had one early that was $95. They wanted to make it really simple. Like, here's the game. That's what you want.
All right, fair enough.
And that's nice though, because then here's the game, and just whatever stretch goals come your way. Like I said, I'm really excited about it because I like the fact that if it's as interactive of a story as they're claiming it to be, I'm gonna look more on it and see what comes up. But I'm probably gonna back it then because I love the idea of the story. I know you do too. And I think if they promise that, there would be a game we're going to love to bring to the table. Yeah. Especially, and then with the character not locking in, a lot of people can just be fun. Like, I'm sure my brother's going to want to be able to charge him with 2 knives, but then also, like, you can
just crazy.
Yes. But, like, you can be creative. You don't have to be the generic mage. Or the generic knight.
Check the links below. You can find both of these Kickstarters. Check them out. And sounds like they'll maybe hurt your wallet this week.
Well, board games always hurt your wallet. But they're big, but I'm sure we both agree they're worth every penny if
we hope. From what we've seen so far. That's it for Kickstarter Pickstarter. Instead of talking more about those, we're going to end our show on the topic of the week.
The Spiel de Jahres, one of the most coveted awards in board game history. These awards are only awarded to a select few. These games have to go through very strict criteria, and by strict we mean really strict. We actually went at Board Game Geek to listen to one of the judges, and the qualifications not only to be a judge and then to choose a game were very high, which I'm very happy for.
And you can go back and find our Board Game Geek Con videos from last year and probably hear us talk about that in depth. But this year...
we've played some of the previous ones. There's actually going to be a playback soon for one of them.
Right.
And the last year winner, Camel Up, we played. And I remember when we actually got to play that and got done, you were just like flabbergasted. You were like, because before we played the nominees before that, it was really funny. We actually played second and third, and then this. So after that, you're like, I see why this won.
Yes.
Like you were just so amazed by it.
Yeah. So generally, the games they pick they're really good. You can usually rely on, if you see that on the box, it's going to be a solid.
Well, actually, yeah, that's a big thing for them. You actually pay to have it on the box, and it's a seller.
But so we're talking about specifically, of course, they just announced the nominees for this year's, which we will reveal to no one because you probably all read about it already, but we'll say were Mecha Koro, Cult Express, and another one called The Game, which I don't believe has had a release in the U.S. So we haven't had a chance to play that, but we have played
the other two,
the original two. So, we can talk a little bit about our... I read some up a little bit on the game. You want me to tell you what
that's like? Yes, that I would love to hear about.
So the game sounds a lot like Hanabi in that there's 100 cards numbered 1 to 100, and there's 2 piles. One starts at 100, one at number 1. And your goal is to... well as you can, taking turns cooperatively, play the cards in ascending or descending order, depending on which pile you're putting it into. And there's other rules, like you can't play a number higher, but like if the number is 87 and you have a 77, you could put the 77 down if it's like exactly 10 spaces away. Some little details like that. But essentially, it's like Hanabi in that you're working together, and you're not allowed to tell each other. You can like say, don't put something in that pile, but you can't tell them what's in your hand. Anyway, so it sounds interesting. It sounds like this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's oftentimes it's playing them makes the difference.
Sure.
So we'll wait until that comes out. Hopefully they'll maybe have something at Gen Con for us to try it out.
We'll have a chance to try it, I'm sure.
But as for the other two, we have played. In fact, he owns Cult Express. I own Mecha Koro.
Right.
And I can see why both of them were nominated. We actually just played Mecha Koro last night of this recording.
Cult Express.
Wow. I mixed them up. Cult Express. And that was my actually first time playing it. And I really enjoyed it. I do think it worked really well for me in the way the game turned out.
Briefly, Cult Express is like a train robbery game where everyone's on a train trying to get the most money.
Right. And you'll be shooting each other, punching each other, moving along the train, trying to avoid the marshal. While playing it, I think my favorite part, though, because the way it works, which I thought was a really cool mechanic, was starting, let's say Jonathan was first, which he was in the game. He plays what he's planning to do on a pile.
Right.
And then the next person plays his, then his. And you keep doing that until the pile's done. Then you flip it over and then actually do the actions.
So nothing actually happens until everyone's put their decisions in.
Right. For the whatever number of rounds. It could vary.
Yeah.
And that's really cool to me because what it is there's sort of a planning of how am I going to move this. And then there could be times when you put face down, which is my favorite part. So you don't know what everyone's doing. Though, for us, spoilers, everyone's shooting.
Yeah. So it requires a little bit of memory and being able to keep track of what you played and what everyone else is doing, too. Which, I think if they didn't have that, it would be a much less interesting game.
Oh, no.
You'd just be moving up and down.
I almost want to say, like, for most of them should have a hidden thing. Like, that, to me, that brought the most interesting...
Well, even if it was just, like, forget the cards. Like, if you just moved and then you moved without waiting, it would be pointless. Almost.
Right.
But that thing makes it a lot more interesting. And, of course, there's the cardboard train.
Right. First of all, let's not forget the scenery. They give you little pieces of scenery. That's it. It's not for the game in any way. It's just scenery along the train track.
So you want to briefly talk about Mecha Koro too before we...
Right.
And then we'll talk about
Mecha Koro is about building a city. You're pretty much your city. You're trying to get points by rolling. Pretty much you buy certain towns, and then each turn people roll a die or dice, depending on certain cards. Yeah. And depending on the value, everyone reacts.
So, like, whatever your cards will have a number on them, and if someone else rolls that die on there and it's not your turn, you might get an effect, basically.
Right. And pretty much, we actually played first with the expansion, which actually plays a little different than the base.
A lot of people do not like these. So, like, this is just for the base. A lot of people don't like the expansion. A lot of people do. It changes
very polarized.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Which is unusual for...
The expansion makes it more random in terms of what you can buy, in terms of buildings, because the base makes it so everything's out.
Right, you always have the same options.
Yeah, make it more like Dominion.
Right,
I think is the analysis.
So I guess what do you think? Generally, the qualifications for these games are family friendly.
All right, let's go through each one. Yeah, and we're strictly going on these two. I do not think it's fair for us to judge.
We're not going to talk about the game
because we haven't played it.
Right.
Well, if it's at Gen Con and we play it, then maybe we'll do a little review there. Hopefully we will.
Yeah.
But let's start with the first one. You said family friendly. While there is violence in Cult Express, it's very simple. Cartoonish. I think both of them are pretty easy to understand.
Oh, yeah.
Both are very colorful, very attractive to the eye.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I easily think I could take both of them to my family. I feel
like Cult Express might be a little bit trickier because there's a little more of gamey kind of stuff.
There is, but I still think there's enough for to be moving. Okay, do this.
Yeah.
At least I didn't think it was too bad.
No, yeah, I just think Mecha Koro is
definitely
more in that
it fits much easier in that.
So it's something unique about it.
Unique
and different.
The train and the deck style. I think Cult Express definitely has the unique one, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Mecha Koro, it actually has been excluding the expansion, considered sort of the child of Catan and Dominion.
Both, of course, Dominion won the Spiel des Jahres, and I assume Catan did too. I don't really remember,
but it definitely brings a unique style. Because in fact, Catan's the only one I know of on dice rolling effects, like.
Yeah.
So it brought back something. I mean, maybe it's not unique, but it's something in terms we haven't seen a lot in any other games.
It's definitely like if there's such a thing as like when a movie comes out and they call it Oscar bait. I feel like if there's such a thing as Spiel des Jahres bait, Mecha Koro is that game. Like,
okay.
That,
no. I understand completely what you say.
Yes, it definitely feels like they're going for that.
This one, which is not one that you should think of. Yeah. Can these games be mass-produced enough to be sold? Should it win the award? I don't. I think both of them are definitely made by, if I recall, big companies and are relatively easy to find. Mecha Koro has been selling out a lot, but once again, it is from bigger, and I can see them easily being able to step up their game should they win the award.
I will say, it was a weird experience because last year when we talked about Spiel des Jahres, I think we talked about it on the show for last year's nominees, maybe, but. We were much newer to games, and like I didn't know what Splendor or Camel Up were. So it's almost weird for me that two of these are like, oh, we sell those. I've played those. I expect them to all be like German things I never heard of.
That's actually the thing we should point out because when I said easy to distribute, and you might be thinking, oh, the game's not here, then it must lose. Because these people are based in around Germany. It's really focused in the European area.
It has to be published there.
Reasonably.
That's why a lot of games that were only published in America aren't eligible.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it works. It's not a terrible thing.
I mean, it's their thing, so we can't complain.
And I feel like there's more qualifications.
I think those are the.
Here's the other one, but this is one we can't comment as much on. Yeah. When someone says, "Here's one to suggest," everyone in the council has to agree.
Right.
There can't be a dissenting voice.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
And that means. These three games, everyone went, okay, it's a reasonable, and that's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see why certain games turn out. In fact, Cult Express, interesting enough. I know when we played it, someone when we played it with didn't like it.
Actually, two of the people we played it with didn't really like it, and we were only playing with 4 people, so that's the other 2 people.
Which is interesting.
I was surprised that they really didn't like it, and I don't know I don't know. Maybe I think part of it is that. If you take away that mechanic, like I said, it becomes less interesting, and maybe that mechanic just didn't do it for them.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think about when you played?
I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, it didn't like. I'll be honest. I don't think either of the games we've played, Mecha Koro, I don't think they for me, they don't measure up to Camel Up.
I was actually about to ask that. Well, how do you think?
I think when I played Camel Up, I was like, oh, this is really cool and fun. Like. And when I played it with people, they want to play it again, like right away, which hasn't been our experience with the other 2 games. But so,
well, to be fair, last time we played Mecha Koro was like late at night. Yeah. I don't think we can.
But so I don't know. For me, I was a little like, like Mecha Koro. I understand. I definitely understand. Cult Express, I am surprised about. Not that I think it's a bad game, but it didn't blow me away. I just I liked it. I thought it was.
I think. Actually, it falls a bit more. I think it is with the train station, the deck. I think it's unique enough. I think that's where it's really shining. Like that deck style, the hidden.
I think the mic descended into our shot while we were talking. That's okay. We'll keep going.
But I understand why it's in it, and it's an interesting. I'm very curious to see the. I don't know if you looked at the honorable mentions.
No, but of course there's also the like Kennerspiel DRs, which is for more like advanced games.
These would be the ones that you probably wouldn't take in front of your family.
Which those we hadn't played any of them. There was one like honorable mention was Deus, which we haven't played yet.
Yes.
But we have for another. There's like they have a few different awards, but the Spiel DRs is really the big deal.
Yes.
But yeah, so overall, I mean, I'm sort of surprised by the choices, or I'm more surprised just by that I'm familiar with them. So it's just like a weird experience. But if I had to take a guess, not having played the game, I would say Mecha Koro probably has it on lock.
I would definitely say that. Once again, you never know with the game. But like the way you described it, like Hanabi, it just feels. Then again, Hanabi's a game I'm willing to play right again.
That's another thing. Well, yeah, I agree with that.
If the game might be that kind of thing.
But that's another thing. Just the sound of the mechanics. Like we keep comparing them to like, oh, it's like this, it's like that. Even Cult Express, we said, is kind of like a Space Alert sort of a thing.
Now can you do that for Camel Up?
Yeah, like Camel Up, and definitely. Well, I guess in a way you can. I mean, that's not really fair because that like Splendor, everyone says it's like deck building basically. So they don't always have something that's wholly new and different.
Right? It's not about wholly new. It's about looking at different
Implements
perspectives.
it in a different way.
Yes.
So I guess
and
that's
I think
fair.
each of them do that.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's
At
true.
least once again, we don't know about the game. But out of the two, my money is. I agree with you. Is Machi Koro. But we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe we'll play the game and during our Gen Con video, you'll just see us like, the game is so good.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe we'll be like, okay, yeah, just. It's very interesting. We'll keep you up to date with the results.
Yeah.
When will they be announced?
I don't know. It's later this year, I imagine, but probably within a month or two. I don't know the exact.
It'd be interesting.
I think it's maybe in August. Let's do it.
So that would be right. Because that'd be right after Gen Con.
Yeah, I'm not sure because they give them a few months to like manufacture.
Yeah, no. It'd be very interesting to see, especially if they announced it, whether they announced it before or after Gen Con. That would be a huge difference in terms of sales at Gen Con. Whether we can get our hands on playing one.
Right.
Oh, the game would be really the issue here. But
Okay. Maybe you out there have played
all three, and maybe your opinion. Maybe you agree with us on Colt Express, or maybe our two other companions.
Yeah.
Maybe you think one or the other games is more of a shoe-in. Maybe you agree with us on Machi Koro being the winner. Maybe not.
We would love to hear your thoughts. You can, of course, always email us. Our address is rollforcrit@gmail.com. Or leave a comment on this video below.
And subscribe. Yeah. And, of course, there's Twitter, at Roll4Crit, and our personal Twitters.
And you can always buy games like Machi Koro and Colt Express.
Yes, and maybe sometime in the future the game.
Yeah, at our website, rollforcrit.com, where we have more podcasts weekly, daily news updates, videos, newsletter, games for sale, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. So check it out, rollforcrit.com.
And that's it, right?
Yeah. So until next time, I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and you've been watching the Roll for Crit podcast.